I'm just getting started on this wedding plate, and it's the second one of this design that I'm doing right now. Got 2 commissioned orders, and this is the first time that I'm doing this rosette, this design, this large. Usually I do it on a smaller 10-inch plate. These are 12-inch, and you can see these parts on the outside here. These are very large chips, seeing compared to this size of the knife there. And on the first one, I ended up running into issues with the handle of the knife as I'm going down to these deep chips, rubbing up against the rim and creating some grooves and damage in the wood there. So I kind of wanted to try to avoid that. So even though these are traditional style chips, not old world, I thought I might try this knife, which has the longer blade and thinner handle that allows me to get closer at the same angle and depth. And I did a couple of practice cut chips on a board here, and it worked out okay, but it was pretty uncomfortable, and I think for they didn't prove to be that much better of a result to really warrant the risk, I think, with using this knife on a real project that I'm not comfortable with doing. So I'm going to go ahead and try it again with this knife as I did before, but just being aware of this issue, and I might try keeping the knife at a steeper angle like this. I usually kind of drag it along at an angle like this, but if I tip the knife up, I think I might be able to get a little bit more depth and avoid the drag issue. So as is a pretty normal thing for especially such large chips, I'm going to carve some relief chips out of the middle of this, and not really have to worry too much about the results or following any lines or anything on these, because this is just taking wood out of the middle here before I do the real chip. So that one, and then this is still a big chip that I'm going to do, so I end up doing 2 layers of this relief cut. And on this second one, I want to get pretty close to the final line that I'm going to be doing, so I just have to remove kind of a little sliver of wood for the final one. So there's still a fair bit between this relief chip and the line, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more and focus on my knife angle along the rim here to get a feel for how this goes. And grain direction is always important in chip carving, but even especially so with large chips like this. If you are cutting the wrong direction or do your cuts in the wrong order, you can end up getting some pretty massive grain ripping, especially on these side ones. I guess this is the top and bottom, but this long slice here that's along the grain, that's really going to want to pop out. But these ones are mostly across the grain, and this bottom one here is with the grain cut, so shouldn't have too much issue with grain on this one. But with large chips, you always want to make sure that you keep your knife at a either the ideal kind of 60-degree angle or maybe even a little bit less. That does a couple things for you. One, it makes it a little bit easier. You're taking out less wood, so it's a little bit easier to make the cut and get that full depth. But it also, with such big chips, they can be kind of overpowering, and if you get the same depth, at least in my opinion, it can kind of be a lot visually. And so having a shallower cut for such big ones, I think, kind of reduces the overwhelmingness of these large chips. So here's the challenging one. Make sure my knife angle's good, and you can see I can't really do my preferred grip with my thumb. I have to kind of take it off of the handle here for this one, so definitely have to be very careful with different parts of the blade and angle, and make sure that everything's doing what I want here. So might be able to see on camera a little bit of a ding in the wood there is what I was talking about from the handle as I come there. So you can probably sand that out. That one's not too bad. Just kind of cleaning up smoothing out some of the lines here from that chip. Okay, that one's not too bad. Go ahead and do the same opposite one here. Same chip on the opposite side to stay in the groove of this grain. So again, taking out the two relief cuts, second one getting close to the final line. And these require quite a bit of strength and force. I'm really having to put a lot of effort into getting down into that full depth. So it's not critical what happens on these relief chips, but it is still nice to use those as kind of a practice and see if I need to make any adjustments or anything for the final chip. So it's not just complete junk, but I don't need to be too worried about how it goes. Just paying attention to any issues that I might have during the cut. Alright, managed to get through that one without dragging on the border. So that's kind of the process that I use for these really big chips. And you can see on here I didn't quite follow the line as precisely as I'd like. So what I do for that is usually wait until I'm done and then erase the pattern lines and see how it looks. More often than not, it's not noticeable. It's much more obvious to my eye anyway here while I've got the pattern lines there, but I think once I erase it, it'll look like a pretty good circle. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up off camera.